All right, to New York right now. No bail for three men accused of trying to bomb two New York synagogues. A fourth suspect in court right now. Authorities say they were bent on a jihad. The terror plot allegedly including attempts to blow up a military plane with a surface-to-air missile. Jamie Colby in the newsroom with more on a prison connection. Jamie.
Neil, good to see you. Here's the connection. 3 of the 4 terror suspects arraigned today recently converted to Islam, and they planned their acts while in prison on convictions unrelated to terrorism. That's according to prosecutors. 3 are homegrown, Neil, and American. A 4th is of Haitian descent. And in court today, lawyers for the defendants did not even seek bail. You can see them here arriving in court. All 4 face charges of conspiracy to use weapons of mass destruction and conspiracy to acquire and use anti-aircraft missiles. If they're convicted, they face sentences up to life in prison. Here's the plot. Wednesday night, they had everything they needed in place to blow up 2 temples in the Bronx. They had a carload of C4 explosives parked outside. According to the criminal complaint, they had also photographed and even discussed shooting down at least 1 military aircraft belonging to New York's Air National Guard with a surface-to-air missile they'd acquired. Those plans were thwarted following a year-long investigation, such precision by law enforcement on this one. They had the help of a confidential informant who worked alongside these men to acquire what they didn't know were fake explosives and IEDs. The men meeting at a Newburgh, New York home that was rigged with cameras and microphones. And in the complaint, Neil, one of the suspects says he wanted to do something to America, that he hates Jews, and if the World Trade Towers were standing, they'd take those down again. Investigators are confirming that all the suspects involved are in custody. They're not looking for anyone else. And prosecutors mention a possible motive, too. They say the parents of one of the men once lived in Afghanistan, and he told the informant he wanted to get back at America for killing so many Muslims there in what we know is an ongoing war on terror. This one, Neil, close to home.
Man, oh man, Jamie, thank you very much.
Good
Jamie
to see
Colby.
you, Neil.
Same here. Well, my next guest says this is exactly why we need to keep Gitmo detainees out of U.S. prisons. I'm talking right now with terror expert Bob Strang. That's scary. You're saying if we had any of those detainees, even a couple of them here, it could get scarier, right?
It's like the perfect storm. You have direct relationships with Al-Qaeda, with major international terrorist rings. They're here in jail where these guys met, and suddenly they're going to start to talk and network and be able to hook each other up locally, and we've got a big problem. It's a toxic mess. I don't know why we would ever think about bringing in these major terrorists and putting them with these low-level terrorists, because we're creating a problem that we're never going to be able to back out of.
Well, we never might have to worry about it anyway, because it seems that even Democrats in the Senate don't want to provide the funding to shut Gitmo down. But let's say it is eventually shut down and the president does get his wishes. These guys have to go somewhere. And the president is saying, as you might have heard at the top of the show, you know, these sort of supermax facilities are the answer, and that no one ever gets out of those places. You're worried what happens in those places.
I'm worried about the whole thing. I mean, first of all, they're given Miranda warnings. They come in, you know, we say, you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. Do you understand your rights? You have the right to waive these. They're going to know that they're going to get a lawyer. They're going to know that they're going to go to court. They're going to know that they're going to be involved in discovery. They're going to have all the rights of an American defendant, which is very different than an enemy combatant. This changes the whole structure. We're taking what the Bush administration had as enemy combatants, and we're moving them into be basically defendants in our criminal justice system. It changes the whole dynamic.
Do you think this thwarted terror effort today kind of changed the complexion of this debate today?
You know, I think it highlighted the fact that we're very vulnerable. We know from the FBI director that homegrown terrorism is our biggest threat in this country. And we know that many of these people that develop these plots meet in jail. That's where they become disenfranchised. That's where they become radicalized, extremists. That's where it all happens. Then they come out on the street and they follow through. They all have criminal records. They
well, and we should stress it happens whether they're enemy combatants here or not, right? I mean, a lot of these guys started powwowing with Islamic sympathizers in jail without any of those detainees being here, which the administration, I think, would argues to its point. You know, that it's going to happen with or without detainees.
But what these guys did with this Riverdale synagogue is a lot different than what Al-Qaeda did in the World Trade Center. And that's my point, that when you put together these well-financed, well-organized international terrorists like the ones that we have want to bring here, and you mix them with these guys and street soldiers that'll do anything, that's the problem.
Well, do you buy this Pentagon report that's been cited in the Times and others that 1 out of 7, when then they are put out in the world again, sort of suit up again and they're back doing the terror thing?
I do buy it, but I probably think it's more like 6 out of 7 that relay messages, that give information, that help individuals commit these crimes. I'm not saying they have to actively put a bomb in their back and go or finance a plot.
But they're up to something.
They're up to something.
Bob, thank you. Bob Strang, the terrorism analyst extraordinaire.
By the way, I found it odd that President Obama failed to even mention the Muslim terror plot to blow up synagogues and military planes that the FBI foiled in New York last night.
I'm not a crook.